Okay, we're looking at Grammar Explanation 7.5, which is on page 184. And this is a tricky thing that happens with past progressive and simple past in a when clause. Okay, remember that a clause is a group of words that is a sentence within a bigger sentence. A clause has its own subject and its own verb, and then it's put into a longer sentence. So when I look at this, I've got two clauses. Henry was working in a hospital is a complete sentence. Here's another clause, when he heard the news. He heard the news. Here's your subject and your verb. Here's another subject and a verb. And what's happening here is you've got past progressive here and simple past here. And what's happening is that he was working in a hospital, and during that time, in the middle of that time, he heard the news. So this action in the simple past interrupted this action, which is in the past progressive. Okay, we use the past continuous with the simple past, or the past progressive is another thing we call this, with the simple past in the same sentence to show the relationship of a longer past action to a shorter past action. And we use when with the simple past in the clause with the shorter action. And we use the past progressive or past continuous in the clause with the longer action. So remember that when I've got a clause like this, I can put the when clause first with a comma. So I've got Annie Moore arrived at Ellis Island. Okay. And her parents were waiting for her. Two clauses, subject and verb, simple past, and past progressive. So while her parents were waiting for her, during that time, in the middle of that time, Annie Moore arrived. I can also change it around and say Annie Moore's parents were waiting for her when she arrived at Ellis Island in 1892. I could change this sentence around if I want. Okay. When Henry heard the news, comma, he was working in a hospital. And a few notes. If the main clause precedes the time clause, that means goes first. We don't separate the two clauses with a comma. Okay, he was working is the main clause. Goes before, oops. Oh dear, hold on. Okay, this is the main clause, and the one with when is the time clause. Okay, here the main clause is before the time clause, so there's no comma. When the time clause precedes the main clause, separate the two clauses with a comma. So this is the time clause going before the main clause here. The time clause has the when. And in this case, when the when clause goes first, I'm going to have a comma. It's just a funny little thing that happens with the comma when you change the position of the clauses.